I often talk about or pray for in our worship or introduce us with these thoughts and notions that you come here for a time of renewal. That we spend our whole weeks running and picking up kids and dropping off and moving to this, and we got this task and that task, and then we have to get to work and we deal with traffic, and then we have to get home and we deal with traffic, and then we have to go somewhere else by nature of just having to do whatever, and we have more traffic, and the world is just cluttered from beginning to end. And I like to think that we show up here and we're able to make this a time of renewal, a time to be renewed, so that we can carry that energy and that excitement and that love and everything back into the world. Now, I recognize for a lot of you, you show up and you have this thing to do and that thing to do, and we have to get some business done, and we have to make sure everything's running properly, and that doesn't always happen. I also know that in your daily life, it is incredibly difficult to find that time, set it aside, and say, I'm going to take this time to renew, to refresh, to focus, to let everything fade away. I couldn't do this series without talking about the Sabbath at some point. Now, we don't really use the word Sabbath that much unless you are Jewish or you are a Sabbath-keeping Christian or a fan of Black Sabbath. We don't really talk about Sabbath that much. We don't really talk about it that much, and we don't know what it means. And sometimes we'll talk about it in this really like high moral ground. So have you been keeping your Sabbath lately? And we don't know what that means. We think it means just like taking a day off of work or setting aside time on Saturday. But on Saturday, we have to handle everything that doesn't happen during the week, groceries and errands and business and all this stuff, and your kids are still there. So if your family looks anything like mine, there's no Sabbath. Don't tell them I said that. So we don't have this place in our life intentionally, and we don't talk about it as in an intentional way, and we don't create the space for the most part. Now, I know some of you, of course, do, and that's awesome. Then this isn't for you. You can just hang out. But for now, I want to talk a little bit about Sabbath and about what it means and about how we can incorporate Sabbath in small ways. I'm not asking you. So if you are a practicing Judaism, you would every Friday night at sundown, you would be settled in your home. You would be prepared for that night and the following day to practice Sabbath. You put down things of work. You put down things of technology. Many Jews intentionally live close enough to their synagogue so that they can walk within a certain distance to their synagogue to practice and pray with others in their congregations. We don't have anything like that, and I'm not asking you to move closer to the church so that we can come together and pray on Friday nights. But the purpose of the Sabbath is so critical in our lives and in our faith that we have to find ways to allow our bodies and our minds and our spirits to be renewed throughout the week. Or even if you want to set aside time on the weekend, somewhere, somehow, you have to find this place. And I'm not good at this. I've told you before, sometimes I have to talk about things that I'm not good at or I don't do well or whatever I'm also working on. That's every week, but this one in particular, I'm not good at all of this. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I went to work and then coached baseball. And then I don't remember what happened on Friday, but then on Saturday I coached baseball. And then we had a beautiful wedding yesterday, of which I performed. And then here we are today. I'm not good at Sabbath keeping. But here's the beauty of what happens here. So when we tell the story of creation, we tell about this story of God creating. And each day, as Genesis 1 recounts, God creates a piece of creation and looks at it, ponders, and says, oh, and this is good. And we don't usually get to chapter 2 when we read that, but I want to read chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. And this is after the 6 days. So we finish up, and there was evening and there was morning the 6th day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the 7th day, this gets very interesting, God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. So from that moment is where we get the Sabbath day. God does all of this work and then rests on the 7th day. And what's interesting about this translation that others don't quite catch the nuance is that God finished the work on day 7 and then rested. Not then, and rested. The rest, in Jewish tradition, the rest is part of God's work. Let that sit for a second. The rest, the time off, the moment of renewal is part of God's work. It's not a 6-day creation, it's a 7-day creation in which, we're not going to go there, in which God rests as part of the action of creation. And on the 7th day, God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all the work. Now, here's another interesting piece that comes next. So every day, and we always quote this. This baffles me. I've been reading Abraham Heschel. He's a Jewish philosopher, scholar, thinker. His book on Sabbath, and he identified this moment. Essentially, every day God finishes, and we always name this, and God looked out, and what happened? God saw, anyone? That it was good. Thank you. We'll get there. God saw that it was good. And then God does something else, and God saw that it was good. The first time this word appears is in this moment of rest. And the Hebrew word is kadosh. It is to be holy, to be made holy, to make holy. Everything else is good. God looks down and it was good. Created the light, created the sun, stars, and it was good. Created the living creatures and saw that it was good. But in the moment of rest, this notion of holiness appears for the first time, and God made it holy. This is a huge Hebrew theme that runs through creation, and the first time it appears is in this moment of restfulness. You see, he identifies, and I've never quite thought about this way. This is why people read Heschel, because he identifies things that no one ever, it's like, oh, interesting. We sacrifice our time to create our space. That's pretty much our entire world is sacrificing our time to create space. And we think about God in the world, and we think about God in the space of the world. And Heschel says, well, what about God in time of the world? And I immediately start thinking about Einstein and space-time continuum and go, oh, of course God is in time. Like it's a thing, space-time. Anyway, sorry. We think Egyptian pyramids, lifetimes to create. Cathedrals, lifetimes to create. We spend and sacrifice time to create our space, to acquire our things. 6 days a week we spend, well, we don't really, but sort of. 6 days a week we spend working in the world to create the space and acquire the things that we need to survive in space. And Sabbath is intended and is designed to acquire the time. The things don't change. The space doesn't change. How you use them and how you address them and how you live in that time changes. Heschel's big driving point is we meet God in that time. Lots of people talk about, I talk about meeting God on the mountains and in the family and in all these different places in our world, and I think all of that is real, but here's a different perspective. Meeting God in the presence of time and setting aside that time to be there and to be with God. So, lots of time. We talk about here, oh, we want this time to be a place of renewal. We want this space. Today we're going to practice. Because I know, for many of you, you don't have the time set aside to be renewed. And we don't have a Sabbath. So instead of talking about it, if this is your first time here, I'm sorry. We're going to try something new. And while I have a few minutes with you, we're going to sit peacefully, and instead of focus on some words that are not really all that insightful from me, we're going to be simply in the presence with one another and with God. Because I know silence is hard for a lot of us, I will offer some words as we go along. But there's going to be a lot of silence, and I'd like you to take the time simply to allow your breathing to be the loudest thing that you hear, to take notice of your breaths in and your breaths out. I often use something like breathing out love or breathing out a word or something like that. It helps me focus. But if you can just hear your breath, you can put your hand on your chest to feel your breaths move in and out. There are some options, and I'll just leave that to you. So if you would appease me for the next 30 minutes. You can do 30 minutes at home. We're going to take some time, and it's going to be long enough to be awkward for you. That's what I'm looking for, okay? When the Psalms tell us that God leads us into let me back up. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. That word, that stillness, is tranquility. It is serenity. It is rest. It's the same word. So let's take a deep breath in. You can close your eyes if you like. and simply feel your breath moving. Six evenings a week we pray. Guard our going out and our coming in. But on Sabbath we pray, embrace us with a tent of your peace. Peace be to you, angels of peace. To God who rested from all action on the seventh day and ascended upon his throne of glory, he vested the day of rest with beauty and called the Sabbath a delight. This is the song and the praise of the seventh day, on which God rested from his work. The seventh day itself is uttering praise. Every seventh day, a miracle comes to pass. The resurrection of the soul of man, and of the soul of all things. This then is the answer to the problem of civilization. Not to flee from the realm of space, to work with things of space, but to be in love with eternity. Things are our tools. Eternity, the Sabbath, is our mate. The Sabbath itself is a sanctuary which we build, a sanctuary in time. If you would like to open your eyes now, maybe one last deep breath in. How do you feel? You awake? There's actual research done on time set aside, meditating or praying or focused on your breathing, that changes your brain structure, allows you to make better decisions, allows you to control your anger and handle the intensities of life better. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it changes your day, changes your week. It changes your life and your time with your family, with people around you, with people you care about. And it seems so simple, right? It seems really simple to just sit. Yet it's so hard to do. Not quite. So try. So take the time. Take this feeling right now of being at rest. No. But we're close. Take that feeling right now of restfulness, of connection to people around you, to God, to just being present in the moment. That's what the Sabbath is about. That's the purpose of setting that time aside. And setting a day would be really difficult for most of us in this room. It would probably be really, really good for us. But even if it's 15 minutes an evening or a morning, getting up that little bit earlier, or pausing the show for that 10 minutes or whatever it is, taking that time will change your connection to God, will change your connection to the people in the lives around you.